Okay,
Okay.
so I start these usually and will this time as well by asking you, how many of my typing sessions have you seen before?
I don't think I've seen any in full, actually.
Okay, that's good. That's makes it a little bit better if you've seen less. Makes it a little easier to type.
Okay.
Um, and how long have you known about personality type stuff?
Since I was 12, so about 10 years, it didn't really become a hobby until I was 19, so that would have been 3 years ago.
I see. Okay, cool. Um, can you tell me about the last time you went out of town on a vacation?
Mm, yeah. I mean, I was in Chicago, although it's hard to say if that's a vacation or not because I was visiting my boyfriend, but um oh, and then
You
while in Chicago, what?
you aren't Cami, are you?
What?
You aren't Cami 9, are you? But never mind. There's somebody in the channel who's got a boyfriend in Chicago.
Oh, okay.
That I said when you said that, I thought, are you that lady? Maybe
No, I
I've
mean,
never seen that lady.
I don't know what you mean by I'm not in a channel with like TWFP. I've heard of, but I'm not.
That's fine. That's fine. I had a momentary. It triggered a memory of mine. I thought you
Yeah.
might be the sort of person.
Um,
Okay, cool. So you went to Chicago.
yeah, I went to
How and how long did you stay in Chicago for?
like 2 weeks. It was pretty
Right.
cool. I mean, there were a couple of places I went. There's like Chicago, and then there's like this small town we went to, and we also went to this like lake with his parents, and we all stayed in this like big house. So that
Hmm.
was fun.
Your parents have a lake house.
They
That's a
don't.
good.
It's like a rental thing,
Oh,
but
like a rental. Okay.
yeah, and then there's like 20 people, so I imagine it's not like as expensive, but it felt very luxurious. There was like fishing and I don't know.
Okay. Do you have a favorite moment from that trip?
Um, yes, but like I don't know. Most of them were like time I was spending with my boyfriend one on one.
Okay. Um, can you talk to me about do you do your own grocery shopping?
Yeah.
Okay. You tell me about the last time you went to the grocery store, and I want you to tell me the story in the most boring way imaginable, which is I went to the store. First, I went to this aisle. I got this object.
Hey,
It
well, you're
was
telling me
bad.
how to do it, so maybe I can make it more boring. I don't know. Um, I went to Fresh Superette, which is on the corner across from the Starbucks, and I picked out some cheese for the crackers I have at home, and I picked out some Nutella, and I looked around to see if I wanted anything else, and I didn't. And then I bought it with my credit card, and then I walked home.
Okay, cool. So you only got a couple of things.
Yeah.
Um, all right. And how long ago was that? Yesterday, day before?
That was yesterday, yeah. I didn't need a whole set of things. I just, yeah.
When you need to get a full set of groceries, do you typically get the same groceries every grocery trip?
No.
So sometimes you might be in the mood to make pasta, you'll buy pasta ingredients for pasta. Sometimes if you're in the mood to make hamburgers, you buy ingredients for hamburgers or like what?
Sure. I mean, usually, I think about like what I might be craving for the next few days, and I try to get just a nice balance of, I don't know, food groups or something. I'll usually get like 1 to 2 like vegetable-y things. Like I got salad mix, and so like for the next few days I'll like be eating salad, and I might get like some sort of meat, usually like chicken thighs to roast or something, and usually I'll have like pasta because pasta's pretty good, or like rice. And I'll usually get like fruit or something else I can eat as a snack, which is relatively healthy, like granola. And
And
I
why
usually get
is it that you're
beverages.
concerned?
Yeah.
Can you tell me more about why you're concerned about the healthiness of the food?
Well, I have some issues with like chronic nausea, ever since I was young, which are like partly just psychological. Um, and I noticed that when I eat well and consistently, it really helps just even that out when I just have like nice things to eat overall. And I also was reading, I mean, I've been reading about like obesity and health studies and things like that, and they say that refined carbs and stuff are just really not the best for you, and it's better to eat other things. And I agree, because when I eat those things I feel better physically, and that's something I value a lot. So
You would appear to have very little to worry about in terms of obesity.
yes, that's not exactly what I'm worried about, but I know even that if I don't have to actively worry about obesity, which I don't, that it's like, I mean, the way I view it in life is knowing my family and knowing genetics and stuff, I'm not going to like have very little to worry about in like maybe 40 years. And regardless, it's like a lot of it's invisible health
Okay.
effects and stuff with like blood sugar, whatever. I mean, I'm not like a nutritionist. I just figured like
Okay.
it makes
So
me feel better
if you
physically,
are
and it also makes sense.
if you are experiencing physical discomfort of some sort, is that something that you're aware of right away?
Usually I'll feel like off either physically or emotionally, and then sometimes I'll write it off because sometimes it just goes away. But I'll like attend to it in my head and then like try to figure out why that might be. I didn't used to be so like obsessive about health or comfort stuff or bring it up. I had an ex-girlfriend who was like had a bunch of health problems, and so I feel like I picked some of that up from her. And I also am on some medication now, which gives me more problems. Before that, I felt more like I'd just like power through discomfort and just assume it would go away, because it usually would.
I see. Okay. And are you are you like in college right now?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I graduated college and then I went to graduate school, and then I left that graduate school after a year, and I'm going to a different one soon.
And what are you going to graduate school to study?
I'm going to study counseling, um, mental health counseling, or maybe rehabilitation counseling.
I see. Well, right off the bat, you're reminding me in a couple of different ways of my daughter.
Oh,
She studied psychology and she didn't go to graduate school. She's just fucking around, but nevertheless.
all right.
um, all right. So let me ask you now uh, I'm going to do some skills questions to try to narrow some things down. Let's start with extroverted thinking. Can you tell me the proper number of steps to break down cleaning the kitchen into? And then can you break it down into that number of steps?
Proper, like there's a official answer, or just like what I do for my kitchen?
What do you think is the optimal number of steps? Let's say somebody's come in to house sit for
Okay.
you while you're gone for a week and you want to leave them instructions on how to clean the kitchen. How many steps do you break it down?
Let's see. I mean, well, let me tally up what I do generally. I probably like wipe the surfaces, so that's like one with like Lysol, or you spray and then use paper towel. And like cleaning like the stove specifically feels like its own thing. I guess washing dishes, if there are dishes to be done, that's like a third. Um, I guess like tidying, that might be the first thing, like putting things where they're supposed to be. That's like a fourth. And then there's the floors, which is like um fifth and sixth, because you have to mop and sweep. And I don't know, I mean, you might like wipe the windows or something if you're feeling very determined. So that's like a bonus seventh step. So I guess I'd say like 5 to 7.
Okay, fine, cool. Um, do you have any suggestions for solving the problem of plastics in the oceans.
Toxics in the oceans?
Plastics.
Plastics. That's a complicated one because I know there's like a plastic island in the middle of the ocean, but it's possible that it's not actually like bothering anyone. The main way in which I've heard that it bothers things is that like it disrupts the sea life. So I mean, I know people send out boats to clean them up. I think they've been researching like different materials that can like eat them or something. I mean, generally, I think that to do things environmentally, you have to invent some sort of technology that's going to sort of like make it easier and more efficient and cheaper to do. So I would continue to look into that. And potentially like I don't know exactly how it all ends up in the ocean, but look into taxes, not necessarily on the plastics themselves, but on people who like use the ocean as like dumping grounds for particular things. But yeah, I don't know. It's
All right, that's a good explication of things. I appreciate it. All right, now let me ask you some verbal reasoning questions. Okay,
okay.
such as if some birds fly and all things that fly are airplanes, are some birds necessarily airplanes?
All things that fly are necessarily airplanes?
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
well,
what I asked was if some birds fly and all things that fly are airplanes, is it necessarily the case that some birds are airplanes?
I think so. If you define all flying things as planes, then some of the birds, the ones that fly, that is, are planes.
Yeah,
And not,
that's correct. Okay. If only Egyptians build pyramids and I build pyramids, am I necessarily an Egyptian?
no.
Yes.
I
Because if
mean,
only Egyptians build pyramids, then
yeah,
everyone who builds pyramids is an Egyptian.
yeah, I've studied for standardized tests that involves these sorts of, yeah. It's
Okay.
basically so.
All right. So how about this? Can you tell me who my mother's husband is in relation to me?
Your mother's husband. So that's your maternal grandmother, and I guess your maternal grandfather, probably, though he didn't necessarily father you because maybe she's just married to him now.
Okay, fine.
But that's
Correct.
probably what I'd call him like by marriage.
Okay, correct. Um uh let's
Do
try this. How about my father's sister's husband's daughter in relation to me, assuming everyone's only married once?
okay.
No
So
bastard.
okay. Can't have that. So father's sister is aunt. Her husband's gonna be your uncle by marriage, and daughter is your cousin. Or
Correct.
yeah.
Okay, good.
Do all
Um,
the IFJs or something you meet, are they like terrible at this? Is that how it
no,
works?
no. These are TI questions. So
Uh,
if you had TI as a blind spot, you would be
Peas.
ESFP or ENFP. We can eliminate both those types.
I see. They're all terrible at this, really?
Yeah, yeah. If I were talking to you and you were an ESFP or an ENFP, if you were an ESFP and I said, "Who's your father's mother?" You'd say, "Family." If you were an
I mean,
ENFP,
I
you'd
mean,
say, "That's black and white thinking."
you have to be good at this sort of thing to like say become a lawyer because like the L side asks these logical reasoning questions. Do you think there's just no EFP lawyers?
Correct. There are no ENFP or ESFP lawyers. If they are, they're terrible at their job, unless they're just doing stuff that's TE. Like,
What law
for
involves
example,
you have to have TI to do the thing, yeah.
yeah, there are certain things that you have to be decent in a given intentional manner to do. Like, if you're NI polar, you can't be concise. So I'll give you an NI test now to see if you're NI polar. I'm going to give you a long sentence that's redundant. I want you to collapse it down into a short nutshell of the sentence, okay?
Okay.
The long sentence is this. If you enjoy an exciting day of baseball and want to participate in a memorable occasion of baseball watching in a classic place, then perhaps you should visit the windy city of Chicago, where the Cubs play at a fantastic old-fashioned arena called Wrigley Field, which has ivy all around it and buildings, and the home runs can go out into the street.
If you like baseball, you should go to Wrigley Field in Chicago.
Yeah. Okay,
I mean,
good.
a lot of detail there, but
Right. But that's fine. But the point is, you're able to distinguish between significant and insignificant details. People who have a blind spot of introverted intuition typically can't do that.
I see.
So it's likely you're not ESTJ or ESFJ as well. So it's like with just that NI question is not super definitive. I need to test it more, but we can more or less eliminate ESFP, ENFP, ESTJ, ESFJ.
I mean, I feel like NI has more to do with like understanding concepts over time than like I shouldn't argue with you about this. I'm sorry.
That's fine. It's informative. I would just say that introverted intuition, like introverted sensing, is a form of knowing. And the thing that makes knowing distinct from deliberation is instantaneousness. So you know something holistically with your intuition. You know this song is great, or this song sucks ass, or whatever, with your intuition, because it's holistic. There's a lot of stuff in it that you can't deduce or reduce, and accordingly, it requires a holistic form of knowing that we call introverted intuition. Regardless, you have your opinions about it and are happy to voice them with me. Tell me about it, and that's informative too. Let's go to extroverted intuition. Can you tell me synonyms for the word mischievous?
Playful, but that doesn't really work. Mischievous. I'm having trouble thinking of things right now for some reason.
Because
Like
it's a very difficult word to come up with synonyms for. That's why I use it.
childlike or immature, kind of. Rascally. That's one.
Okay, that's fine. That's good enough. You did better than most people. It's a tough word because there aren't any rascally is about as dead on a synonym as you're going to get. There really aren't very many great synonyms for mischievous.
Okay.
So I use that test because it reveals how much what people are willing to deviate from the actual meaning of the word.
Mhm.
And so it's like you were able to come up with playful and that it's not really a synonym, and rascally, which is a better synonym. That shows both an awareness of whether something actually a synonym and an ability to come up with a few things. So you're unlikely to be extroverted intuition polar. But I'm going to ask you some other intuition questions. Have you ever heard of something called inky pinky?
No, I have not.
All right. So it works like this. I'll give you an example. The clue will be like hilltop water spout. I'll tell you it's an inky pinky. That means the answer, both the words have two syllables. And the answer in this case is mountain fountain. So hilltop means mountain, water spout means fountain. The answer always rhymes.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Heard of these.
another example would be if I were to say roadway flesh and it's an ink pink, the answer is street meat.
Okay.
Do you get the concept?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. So here's a simple one to start with. This is a drop from a barrier and it's an ink pink.
Fall wall.
Yes. And this one is another ink pink. It's a sunrise front yard.
Dawn lawn.
Correct. And we'll do one more. This is a a somebody who sneakily watches you while moving around on their legs. It's an inky pinky.
Sneakily watches you.
While moving around on their legs.
Stalker walker?
Correct. Okay, now can you come up with one for me?
Oh, okay. Let me think. Sorry, I'm writing to make sure I don't like fuck it up. No, I don't. There's not a lot of synonyms for that one. Okay, I have Inky Pinky, and I have stupid thing you find at parties.
Hmm. Hmm.
Might not have been.
I don't know. You tell me what the answer is. It doesn't matter if I can figure it out anyway.
I'm sorry. Okay, I came up with buffoon balloon, but I think I
That's
need.
good. No, that's good. Except you should have given a stupid person you find at a party.
Oh,
Or
okay.
I guess stupid person and thing you find at a party or something like that.
Okay, sure.
All right, cool. That was a good one. So, okay, we can definitely eliminate extroverted intuition. But just to confirm this one last time, I'll give you my third extroverted intuition test.
Cool.
So we can definitely eliminate that as your polar already, but I'll confirm this. So I'm going to give you a new invention I came up with, and I need you to come up with some snappy marketing names for it. Okay.
Okay.
The new invention is it's a printer for your computer, but it also prints, it can print out onto paper, but it could also send out smoke signals into the air.
That's all the stuff it does.
Yeah, it prints, but if you wanted to, you can send out Morse code smoke signals.
Okay. I'm not very good at snappy marketing lines. My first thought though is if you go to a desert island, you can get attention while also like printing books to read or printing entertainment.
Right, but I'm looking for a name. What's the product going to be named?
Product. Okay. Let's see. Notebook and I'm trying to think of something that rhymes. There's printer, but that doesn't really work.
It doesn't have to rhyme, okay? And they don't even need to be good names. We're looking for quantity of names.
Oh, okay. Okay. It's like there's smoke printer, but that's not very interesting.
That's fine.
Signal printer. What else could you call a printer? You could call it like fire printer. Like you could use that as the brand or something, like FYRE or something, and then just
Sure.
have it be the line of things. I don't know. This feels silly. I'm sorry. I feel embarrassed.
That's fine. Okay, cool. So let me ask you about some values questions now.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask you first values questions about what you prefer other people to uphold in the world as a value if you have to choose between two things, okay? In other words, would you rather another person in the world, say your boyfriend, be fair to you and rude, or polite and unfair?
I suppose if fairness requires rudeness, I would pick fairness because I associate fairness with like honesty and viewing you as equals and things like that. And then if someone's like polite but unfair, it still feels like maybe they're screwing you over on some level. So I don't like either, but I would pick fair but rude.
Okay. What about kind or efficient? Other people in the world.
Kind in general. I don't need anyone else to be efficient.
Because you're efficient enough.
I mean, I guess that's like I deal with my own stuff, but also just like efficiency only really matters in the workplace, and I just don't really care. I mean, I don't want people to like procrastinate on getting back to me on, or like if I'm like, "Hey, can you like mow the lawn or something?" and they just don't do it. Like that's annoying, but that feels more like not keeping promises than being inefficient. If they do
Right.
go about life inefficiently, that has very little to do with me.
Okay. So unreliable is what
Oh.
you were talking about there. Unreliable is something that bothers you. Do you find yourself to not to be unreliable ever, or is it just something you find bothers you in other people?
I think I can definitely be unreliable, though I don't think other people would necessarily describe me that way, because I have trouble getting the things on time a lot of the time, and like I feel like I can be pretty efficient and that I get a lot done in one day, but it's hard for me to predict how long things will take or predict when I'll be ready to move on to something else. Like it feels like I get very stuck in one mode and it's hard to like switch modes. And I also used to be very forgetful. Like if people would ask me to submit something on time, sometimes I'd forget to do that. So I really try not to be. I don't like being unreliable.
Okay. Can you talk to me about your sleep habits a little bit? Like how many hours of sleep do you need a night?
I tend to feel tired unless I get at least 9, but I'd say usually I get like maybe 7 to 9. They used to be really crappy. Like I'd sleep later and later every day, and then I'd be waking up at like 4 p.m. sometimes. But when that happens, usually I just try to reset. So I'll take like melatonin and then try to wake up on the earlier side and drink coffee and just have like a yeah. So I guess usually I try to fall asleep like by 2 a.m. these days and then wake up before like noon, and that works okay.
Okay, cool. Um, what made you decide you wanted to go into counseling?
Well, I had been thinking about like future careers and the like, but when you're in school, the main thing is what classes are you going to take and like, do you like them? And essentially, psychology was the only thing where I consistently found the classes like both not like soul crushing in their difficulty, but also like consistently interesting. It felt like the sort of thing I'd be interested in studying on my own, but I get to study it with other people. And yeah, it was just interesting to me. So, and I wanted to learn about all the different aspects of it, like cognitive and biological and neurological. And I've always been the most interested in what's called abnormal psychology. That is to say, generally mental illness or where things go wrong in the brain. And I didn't have a ton of counseling experience for a while, but I worked at like a crisis line for a bit, and I guess enjoyed is the wrong word, but I found that meaningful. And overall figure that counseling is something which would like be relatively stable and let me use knowledge in psychology and also work with people face to face, which is something I think is pretty important to me in jobs. And I also figured that if I studied psychology and did counseling, I'm not burning out or something, which I think is a major concern, then I could like pivot to something else. But I think I will probably find counseling like meaningful and enlivening for quite a while because I feel like naturally what I try to do with people already is to try and like figure out ways for them to solve their problems, um, and give emotional support. And that can be in line with some branches of it.
Okay, if you were going to give some single piece of general advice to people who don't have real mental illnesses, in other words, they aren't schizophrenic or bipolar mania, but they want counseling because they got, emotional stuff going on or whatever. What one piece of advice would you give?
The one piece of advice, okay, well, it really depends on people's situation. And a lot of it are like platitudes people have heard before. Um,
I mean, but I'm looking for a platitude, really.
okay. I guess one is something like, it's not awkward unless you make it awkward, or something along the lines of other people uh, aren't necessarily like remembering the thing that's bothering you as much as you're going to remember it. Like everyone's in their own heads most of the time.
Okay. What do you think about the
But
statement? You just
outside,
need to go outside. That's good advice.
like, I feel like a lot of people would be better off if they like ate and slept regularly and had friends. Like I feel like a lot of people would be better off if they just had stable social circles in person, but that's something a lot of people struggle with. So
Okay.
yeah.
What do you think about the statement? You just need to let go of your past.
I I don't know. I mean, I don't imagine that being particularly useful for most people, because most people have no trouble letting go of their past. It wasn't particularly meaningful to them. And people who do find their past meaningful in a good or bad way probably like are going to struggle to let go of it.
Well, you're correct. You're incorrect that most people have no problem letting go of their past.
No, I was
Most
saying,
most NI people are not consumed with their past. Most SI people are consumed with their past.
oh, I don't think I said most people I said like if they have no trouble, or like it's not going to be useful to most people.
But
That's
that's true. It's not going to be useful. It's not a useful thing to say, but it is something that, like, for example, ENFJs typically think and get behind 100%. Like, the problem is people are just, they need to let go of their past. Anyway,
okay.
um, that's just something that some types are more likely to embrace as a notion than others. Of course, since you've studied psychology, you're a little less likely to over universalize than other people.
Oh, well, thanks. I don't know. I mean, some people probably do need to like, I wouldn't say let go in terms of just forgetting, but detach from the past. I think I'm probably one of those people who benefited from that, but I also feel like there's a certain like thread of consistency with the habits you're going to acquire and the sort of person you are that's useful to remember as well. And I don't really have a problem with the past. Like I feel
How much
like
time do you spend in your past?
how much time? I mean, a moderate amount, I guess. Like, I used to think of myself as very not nostalgic, and I think that's fair because if I spend too much time in the past, one, I tend to get bored because I'm like, I should be going to like do things instead of just like thinking about the past and like talk to those people. Like, if it's something I can replicate, then I just want to do it again. If it's something I can't replicate, then it's gonna make me sad probably. But there are also times I'll go to the past to like try and remember why I did a particular thing or why I am a particular way. So I don't like nostalgia, which I feel like just makes me sad, but I think I'll think about I'll think about the past a fair amount and like make timelines related to it or make lists of like people related to it, things like that.
Okay.
Retell anecdotes from the past a lot if I find them useful.
Okay. Do you consider yourself socially graceful?
I guess so. I mean, people seem to say that I'm not like socially horrible, and graceful is not an uncommon word applied to me. So I think that would be relatively accurate.
Do you think it's more accurate because you don't make mistakes or because you do things that elicit positive stuff?
I'd say mostly the former, though I don't know that everyone would agree with me. I don't think that I'm like especially charming, but also most people seem to like interacting with me, but I don't really know why that is.
Okay, cool. Um, do you have like long-term plans, like 5-year plan, 10-year plan kind of thing?
Yeah, I guess so, but ultimately there's only a few major goals that are that important to me. I used to be really like rigid with my plans, and then I realized that I'd feel trapped with them, and then I'd just kind of be like, okay, the furthest I'll plan ahead is like the next week, or like the next month or something. But within 5 years, I mean, I'd like to be living in like a city at least for a while where I can like rent probably, ideally with my boyfriend now. and I'd like to be graduated and have started on my career and have a sort of like day-to-day life that makes me happy, with like being able to visit places in town like libraries or clubs and have some kind of like established social thing. And probably like certain hobbies, but those always just kind of take care of themselves. Like right now I'm doing a lot of music. I just sort of to pass the time because I don't like sitting still with my thoughts for too long. And
So, are you recording music or playing music or what?
I record, like, I don't write my own music most of the time, so usually what happens is I'll hear a song I like and then I'll break down like the vocals and then like record the vocals and do harmonies and stuff. Sometimes I'll write my own lyrics to them and then sing like different lyrics. Um, yeah,
Do
it's
you
usually,
do you play any instruments besides singing?
yeah, I play piano, but I don't have a piano right now, so I don't do a lot of that.
Do you have an electric piano at least?
No, I don't. I have one at home. It's not like a super priority to me to have an electric piano because they're really hard to move, and I'm kind of itinerant right now, and I don't want to have anything large to move because I don't know, I'm just really like I hate moving large objects and needing to take them with me from place to place and lifting heavy
Okay.
things. I really hate that. I don't know why, but
What about when it comes to moving things into a house? Like, do you ever have trouble turning it so that it's the right direction to fit through a door, for example?
oh yeah. For sure. I mean, I'm good at unpacking quickly and like deciding where I want most things. I don't think I'm like wonderful at interior design, but I'm good at going like, okay, where I'm going to use this and just like breaking down a task in terms of like a list. But if it involves like in the moment physically complex maneuvers, I feel like I'm crappy at that. At least
Okay.
things. If it's like something small or like knitting or whatever or something like that, I think I'm fine at that.
All right. What happens if, let's say, you're leaving your apartment and you reach for the doorknob and it just comes off in your hand? One
Oh,
half of the doorknob falls on the other side, one half falls on this side. Do you fix it yourself? Do you call somebody? Do you look it up on the internet? What happens?
okay, no, that actually has happened, because of my doorknob. And when my ex-girlfriend lived here, that used to happen all the time because she'd yank on doors super hard. What happened with that door was I just came home to find it like the doorknob gone. So, I mean, depending on how much of a rush I'm in, I might just leave it as it is for a bit. But first thing I try to do is just fix it myself. And with that one, it's pretty simple. You just take one end and shove the other end into it and just like push it flat. So that was pretty easy. But if it wasn't easy, I'd look it up on the internet. And then if I couldn't figure out it then eventually I'd call someone, I guess.
Okay. All right.
Or I could ask my grandpa. He's like good at fixing things. So that would be cheaper.
Okay. Cool. It's good to have a useful grandpa around.
Yeah. Well, everyone's useful in some regard.
Okay. Um, do you think that nobody should be judged on their utility accordingly?
Nope. I mean, no, everyone's gonna judge other people regardless of like, I feel like a lot of people, it's like, well, what is this person like offer to me? And so, I mean, I don't think you should reduce someone to their like utility in one respect, like their economic utility or whatever, but also ignoring a person's utility entirely, then like you don't really know, or they don't necessarily know why you're like engaging with them specifically. Even something like, oh, I like this person and I like how they make me feel, or I feel some kind of responsibility to this person. Those are all like forms of utility.
Okay. You seem to approach things from a very rational angle. What do you think about? Do you identify as being a rational person? Do you identify as being more rational or more emotionally intelligent?
I feel like that's like a false dichotomy, honestly. I don't tend to encounter super rational people and always find them to be emotionally terrible or vice versa. And I think I have a fair amount of wisdom in both realms. I think the way I talk and the way I like solve problems academically tends to be more rational. And that makes me more unusual in the psychology field because I'm really interested in like statistics. Um, Not that
I
psych people
mean,
aren't.
that's a very rational response to me asking that question, right? You define your terms. You say it's a false dichotomy. You explain why you think it's a false dichotomy because of your empirics and your experience, etc. You couldn't provide a more rational response to the question
Sure.
than that.
I mean, I don't think that I tend to like go with my heart in the moment because it makes it harder for me to structure my answers and it makes me feel more like vulnerable. But I think that I identify internally as valuing emotions more and valuing like sort of life of, I don't know, what brings people like meaning.
Subjectivity.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I don't feel like I have to be objective all the time or do pros and cons or always act or talk according to that. I just don't really care about that in myself very much, but I do care about it in others to some extent. I don't like to feel like, I don't know.
Right. Okay.
I don't want to feel like
Well,
I'm keeping things together for the other person.
okay. Cool. Um, what's what sort of self-care rituals are most important for you and your mental health?
Um, Having consistent access to caffeine, honestly. And I already talked about eating and sleeping regularly and eating healthily, having like going outside and walking around and having enough time to like reflect on things away from the internet because when I get anxious, I tend to kind of like numb my brain out by just going on the internet and talking to people there, which is not always a bad thing, but like as soon as I leave, I haven't done anything to solve the anxiety and I'm just anxious again. So being able to say like go outside and go for a jog or journal, things like
What do you
that.
get anxious about?
What do I get anxious about? Usually social things.
Okay.
Social things or how
What?
I feel physically.
So you're saying like, oh gosh, I said that to that lady, but I hope she didn't think I meant yeah, like that.
I mean, that used to be the case. Usually these days it's more like concrete things, like someone's mad at me or we're like disagreeing or something. Yeah, it's or like maybe a friend isn't doing particularly well and I feel like I should have like said something different to them. Yeah, or wish I could help them more but don't know how. Or sometimes I just feel frustrated with someone and lash out at them when I shouldn't and things like that.
Yeah.
I'll also fret about the future, like, I feel, like, isolated pretty often, and then I'll get anxious about that.
Mm, yeah. I feel you on both counts. Um, okay. So what's gonna make you more mad at yourself if you were unreliable? If somebody says it correctly accuse you of being unreliable or correctly accuse you of being unfair.
Oh, probably unfair, for sure.
Okay, cool. And what about if they accuse you of being socially awkward or unfair? What's gonna bother you more?
Probably socially awkward, honestly.
Okay. Um, all right. So
Mhm.
I feel like I probably know what type you are. It's a difficult type to be 100% certain about because I don't have a good test for that polar, for that blind spot.
I see.
But I will tell you what I think you are,
Okay.
and you can tell me what you thought you were coming in. I think you're an INTJ.
Okay.
What did you think you were coming in?
Um, I mean, I type using Socionics as, like, SITI.
Okay. Well, I mean, there are no there's no SITI BAP, BAP, you know. First of all, you're not SI. I can understand why you might type as SI, given your responses to your relationship with food and sleep is kind of similar to an SI type, but you don't communicate in an SI way at all. SI people are full of examples. They're full
I'm
of concrete examples from their life.
okay.
And they understand what they understand as continuations from the past. They spend a lot of time having intrusive memories about the past that inform them constantly of what's going on right now, regardless if they want them to inform them. So you do not talk at all like an SI type. You talk like an NI type.
Okay.
You respond with only relevant stuff. You never give me any irrelevant stuff. So, and the thing is, it's like when you go to the store to buy stuff to eat, you buy it for a few days, whatever. SI people who are especially an ISTJ, for example, SITI would be like what, INFJ maybe? I mean, ISFJ maybe, but you're not an ISFJ because your TE is too good. I don't believe you have that much difficulty with ordinated tasks, with ordination in general.
No.
What I was trying to figure out was, like, are you possibly NIFE? But the answer is no. You've got an absolute value of feelings that's consistent with INTJ. You've got concern or anxiety about FE that's consistent with INTJ. You get mad at yourself with TI, that's consistent with 6 slot. And your extroverted intuition is solid, that's consistent with 5th slot. You're not TI polar, you're not TE polar, you're not FE polar, you're not you're not NE polar, you're not NI polar. SE, I didn't really test your SE. The only kind of questions I have to test SE are about procrastination, but you made it pretty clear that you're not a big procrastinator. You get shit accomplished that you need to get accomplished, right?
I was thinking about like the moving the boxes or whatever. I thought that was like an SE question.
That was an SE question. Well, you informed me about SE stuff about it. The question about whether you about turning things a certain direction to fit it through the door, that's a TE question. I would expect you to not have difficulty with that, but you know, the thing is, in my mind, you are definitely not very strong TI. Like, you're not polar, but you're also not bam, bam, bam like an INTP would be or something, or an ENTP, or an ISTP or an ESTP. So you're somewhere not 1, not 2, and not 7 with TI. All right. I think it's most consistent with 6. The TE, I'm a little thrown about because you did a good job of addressing TE questions like solving plastics in the ocean in terms of actually sort of thinking through the various difficulties associated with the various approaches and stuff like that. It's very consistent with TE, not polar. When it came to your kitchen cleaning, you broke down the things that you do and counted the steps and kept track of the number of steps. That's very inconsistent with TE polar. TE polar people will be like, oh, well, first you need to know whether your kitchen's dirty, and then you need to know whether you have enough cleaning stuff. And what's that on? And it's like that, okay?
Those do seem like useful concerns. I mean, I just assumed that since you're asking me, the kitchen's already dirty and you have the things to clean it.
Right. That's what a person who doesn't have TE in their blind spot is going to do.
Also, I don't run out of cleaning supplies like ever. Do you use all your cleaning supplies quickly?
Well, no, those are very reasonable points you're making, and points that a person who does not have TE as their blind spot would make. So that's what I'm saying. You're not INFJ. You're not ISFJ. You're not ESFP. You're not ENFP.
I will grant you, I don't really understand TE blind spot particularly well or see it reflected in me from day to day. The main thing is I feel like I find it irritating a lot of the time, and that was sort of what I attributed it to. But
okay, well, you may find TE irritating, or you may be misidentifying something else as TE. I don't know how, because the thing is, if you're studying socionics, you're learning some wrong things. You need to be only listening to defensible typology because I'm the only person correct about it. I don't blame you for not believing that. That's fine, but it is nevertheless the case. If you are looking anywhere other than Eric's defensible typology explications for typology information, you are being misled. And the reason is because I have properly articulated that there are 4 kinds of paying attention: knowing, deliberation, action, and interface. And what each of those 4 kinds are, how each has, anyway, I've articulated all the correct things that actually parse out correctly. I'm a professional debate coach by trade. So I know what makes a case that withstands scrutiny and what doesn't. That legalistic shit, that's my expertise.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point is, you may be misidentifying TE or maybe not, but regardless, even if you do find TE irritating, that's not inconsistent with tool function, because it's an instrumental value, not an absolute value. Your dominant function is an absolute value. Your second function is instrumental. Your third's absolute. Your fourth is instrumental, and so forth. Odd numbers are absolute. Evens are instrumental. Which is why you think FI is your more important value than any kind of T, even though you sound so rational.
Okay.
I think you're an INTJ. I can't say 100%, but that's what I believe you are.
That makes sense, yeah. I mean, based on what I've heard, yeah, that's like a reasonable case. Internally, I don't feel as if I value TE and FI over FI or FE and TI. So I guess that would confuse me a bit.
Well, you
With
do value FE and FI both as absolute values, and TE and TI are both instrumental values, which means you don't view rationality as inherently a value in and of itself as an outcome. You view it as a necessary and valuable means to attain outcomes that resonate on feelings grounds, which is really the same as me.
Okay. And then which would I would value intuition but not sensing? Is that how it works in your thing?
Yeah, well, your absolute value is intuition, your instrumental value is sensing. So the things you talk about sensing, doing stuff, it's to deal with what? To make your anxiety go away, to whatever, right? To make you feel something. Other people they find satisfaction just in the doing of things, just because like that's its end in and of itself.
Mhm. Okay.
And you clearly see your SI as instrumental as well. So I mean, you're managing to prevent yourself from having negative impacts from bad SI.
Yeah. So I'm curious why you think that everything else is bad information. Like I could see you having like good information because you've looked through different like holes and patched them up and stuff. But why does that mean that like socionics has bad information or like Jung has bad? I don't know if you think Jung has bad information,
Well,
etc.
yeah, sure. Because they haven't done the necessary work to do it right. And so even where they are right, it's misleading. It's like saying 2 plus 2 equals 2 plus 2 times 2 equals 4. Therefore, every time you have 2 numbers that are times together, you just add them together and you get the answer. The thing is, socionics might be right that 2 times 2 equals 4. But if they believe it equals 4 because you've added them together when you multiply, then you shouldn't listen to anything they say because they're totally full of shit.
Mhm. All right. I don't have more questions, I don't think.
Okay.
I'm curious if you know Enneagram though. Just
I
as
do. Do you want me to give you my quick 5-minute Enneagram test?
sure, okay.
All right.
My other question was
What?
what happens if I'm good at all the tests? But if you don't have like FE polar tests, then that
And I
oh,
don't have a good FE polar test. That's one. I don't have a good FI polar test, and I don't have a good FE polar test.
well,
The F's are hard to test.
I
Right?
mean, I guess for FE polar, you could like present different like scenarios of what would be like socially appropriate to do or what like would be fair or whatever, something
Oh,
like that.
here's the FE test I do use for polar, although I didn't use it on you. Can
Okay.
you please say to me, "I really like your hat," first sarcastically and then regularly?
Oh my god. Okay. I really like your hat. And then like, I really like your hat. Something like that.
Right. That's not terrible. This is what I'm saying. It's not a great FE polar test. It wasn't good, but it wasn't terrible. Are you FE polar based on your inability to voice sarcasm? It's not 100% of a test. It's just a check. You,
Yeah. Social stuff is pretty relative.
yeah. It's hard for me to gauge whether that counts as not doing sarcasm right or not. That's why I didn't even bother with it really.
Okay.
So Enneagram is just, my take on that is you just have to self-report that test. You say to yourself, number one, am I going to avoid shame by being helpful, by being high achieving, or by being fuck you and your rules?
I don't know. Avoid shame. I mean, I feel like if you're expected to be helpful and you're not, that's shameful. If you're expected to be high achieving and you're not, that's shameful. I don't know when people expect you to be like, fuck you, but that doesn't really come up.
No, I mean, it's like somebody saying, come on, Annie, you're failing to meet the standard we expect. Are you
Uh,
going to fight back by saying, nah, I'm helpful, or nah, I'm high achieving, or nah, fuck you and your rules?
well, I feel like my instinct is to just like try to meet the standard they expect. To meet it, and specifically to meet it in a way that is like so good that they can't argue.
Okay, but they have different standards. They don't all have the same standard.
I
Are you
mean,
gonna are you gonna achieve on different levels for different people according to what they want?
well, if it's one specific person, then they do have a specific standard. But if it's many people, then I focus on what I'm most likely to be able to do. And then for the rest, I don't know, appease them.
Okay, well, that's a very good and rationalist critique of an enneagram. Now, if you are avoiding fear, are you likely to study more about what you're afraid of, so you're not afraid of it anymore? Are you likely to retreat to the fact that you've got sufficient resources in the status quo? Or are you likely to bury your head in the sand and say, oh, I'm sure that storm will miss my city? Nah, 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 nah.
Uh, if I'm in fear, I mean, I feel like if I'm anxious, I'll study, but I feel like if I'm actively in fear, then I'll usually retreat or try to avoid it. Yeah.
Okay. And last one, if someone comes at you with anger, are you likely to respond with anger back? Are you likely to be like, I'm withdrawing until you calm down? Or are you likely to be like, okay, if you're so mad, here, have this pie?
Have this spot, like, give them the thing. Um,
Okay.
I mean, usually if someone's angry with me and I don't think it's justified, then I will try to respond sort of matching it, because I don't want them to feel like they can just say whatever just because they're angry and just have me take that because they happen to be angry. Although that isn't usually the best strategy, honestly, because if you say that to someone who's angry irrationally, they're just going to become more angry and more irrational. But I usually do it anyway because I can't really help it.
Okay.
Um,
I call you an 853. I say your Enneagram tri-type is 853.
okay.
There's my quick Enneagram test.
Okay.
What do you self-identify as Enneagram wise?
I identify as a 6, with 3 and 1. But
Okay. Well, your response regarding anger sounded more like how an 8 is. I'm like that too. I don't want to get angry, but I'm not going to let somebody else be angry at me. And before I know it, it'll be like,
yeah, I mean, the way I see it differently is for me is that like there's more oneishness involved in that I'm like I feel like eights will usually in the moment just get angry because, whereas I feel like for me it's like it feels pretty intentional. It's sort of like I'm going to set this block here and like this line, and it's like you can't cross this, and then if they do, I'm like, oh, you crossed it. Oh well, like now I can do whatever. Um, I don't think it's a matter for me of not being able to control my anger around people, which usually it feels like I can. It feels more sort of like getting back at them, like a back and forth type thing. But I don't know.
okay, well, that's fine. Listen, I'm not going to even defend my Enneagram typing to anybody, right?
No, it's fine. I find your quick test interesting and stuff.
It's not something I'm not an Enneagram typer. I don't put a lot of weight in Enneagram. I think it's just basically a taxonomy of FI.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay.
So, but anyway, that's my take on Enneagram, and hopefully you feel like I did a good job typing your personality type regular, not the Enneagram part.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, good. Anything else? Did you want to ask anything?
No, I don't think I have any further questions. Thank you for your time.
Okay, would you like me to share this video with you privately, or are you comfortable with me publishing?
You can publish it if you want.
All right, great. Thank you. I'll do that later today when it's done processing.
Okay. Thank you.